Hey, you're Mr. Loner, aren't you?
At the high school reunion, a classmate, the son of a president who used to tease me, called out to me. Even though I said I came to talk business, he just smirked and wouldn't listen.
Sure, you'd be over the moon to deal with my company, but what's in it for us?
I realized he must have misunderstood that I was pitching to him. It was a complete miscommunication, but he went on.
You're just that kind of guy. I'll become the president of a big company without lifting a finger, while someone like you, carrying the weight of a shabby factory, is just pitiful in his desperation.
Then he poured me a beer. Well, talking to him is pointless. I decided to quietly leave the place. There's no rush. After all, soon enough, he will realize who I am and regret his actions. My name is John Smith, and I recently turned 50. One day, an invitation to my high school reunion arrived. Looking at the invitation, I couldn't help but grimace. I don't have many fond memories of my high school days, because my nasty classmates used to mock my grandfather's and father's work. My family has run a metal working factory since my grandfather's time, with old equipment, and both my grandfather and father always worked in greasy overalls. Of course, I've always admired my grandfather and father, who were committed to their work and held in high esteem by their clients for their reliable skills, and I'm still proud of them. But because of those mean classmates, I was always ostracized and isolated during high school. I had no one I could call a friend at school, and I thought maybe I should just skip the reunion. But there's someone I want to talk to, and it seems they'll be attending the reunion too. Yeah, maybe I'll just go and check it out. Despite my hesitation, I finally decided to attend. Then, on the day of the reunion, I heard excited voices from the venue. I looked around the room. In the midst of the largest crowd, I spotted a familiar face. He had aged, but there was no mistaking it. That was my classmate, Tom Anderson.
Tom, is that watch you were wearing something you bought overseas?
One of the classmates asked, glancing at the watch on Tom's right wrist. There was a flashy, luxurious watch, ostentatiously displayed.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it was cheaper than buying it in the States. I think it was about $15,000. But this model isn't available in the States. I got it through a special client's quoter.
Well, that's impressive.
Well, it's nothing special, but the view at night from the top-tier local hotel was extraordinary. It was a wonderful experience. Such an experience is something you probably can't get if you live in the States.
It seemed he was telling everyone about his extravagant trip abroad. He tried to act nonchalant, but the smugness was clearly visible on his lean face, as if he couldn't wait to boast about it. Incidentally, being on the shorter side, wearing a watch with heavy and ornate decorations honestly made his stature appear even more meager. The people around him probably noticed this too. However, the classmates flocking around him kept praising him, saying things like "You're the best," and "We are just in a different league, aren't we?" without a hint of sincerity. I can tell it's a totally heartless flattery. But Tom, with a pleased expression, responded, "You guys always flatter me too much," seemingly enjoying the adulation. I sighed as I saw the ridiculous exchange. That's right, they were like this even back in high school. Tom was the son of the president of a large sporting goods company. He was always surrounded by followers and acted like a king. And indeed, he was the very person who mocked me and my family's factory back in high school. He would say things like, "Stay away from him or you'll get dirty," and I was constantly teased. Since no one could resist Tom, the president of a big company, I spent my high school days alone without any friends. Decades have passed, and while their appearances have aged, it seems their behavior and mentality have not changed at all. I was just looking at them from the side, feeling nothing but disdain. Then, at a break in the conversation, Tom suddenly looked my way. Recognizing who I was, he smirked self-deprecatingly. Like a predator finding its prey, Tom slowly approached me. The grin that lifted the corners of his mouth was the same one I remembered from the past.
Well, if it isn't Lonely John, I'm surprised you showed up at the reunion, being such a loner. Got a strong mind, huh?
He intentionally said such things in a loud voice that echoed around us. Tom, giving me a thoroughly condescending look, snorted as if mocking me.
Don't try to show off to everyone by wearing such an exaggerated outfit. That's a fancy foreign brand suit. It must be a rental, but sadly, it doesn't suit you.
While saying this, Tom exaggeratedly shrugged his shoulders and sneered, prompting a ripple of smirks among the crowd.
By the way, you must have taken over that grubby little factory. Oh, I remember. Your grandpa and dad always worked hard in their dirty clothes, sweating away. Even their faces were covered in grime. Yet they'd casually talk to me, which was annoying.
Tom exaggerated his gestures for emphasis. I was irritated by his malicious tone of voice. But considering the crowd and the situation, I refrained from arguing and instead took a deep breath and spoke calmly. Actually, I came here today to talk business with you. Can you spare some time? Indeed, my purpose in attending this reunion was to talk with him. However, upon hearing my proposal, Tom burst out laughing again.
What's that supposed to mean? Are you serious? What the hell does such a rundown factory have to talk about with my big company?
Tom laughed loudly, clutching his stomach. People around him frowned at his loudness. But unfazed, he continued to ridicule, still laughing.
Come on, don't you think you're barking up the wrong tree? Ha ha, sure, you'd be thrilled to deal with a company like ours. But what's in it for us?
His words made me realize. Tom seemed to have misunderstood that I was making a sales pitch. It was a total mismatch, we thought, but wondered how much I could say in such a public setting. However, Tom, taking my silence as a convenience for himself, looked down on me with a smirk and spat out.
Hey, it struck a nerve, and now you're silent. Well, that's just your level. I'm going to be the president of a big company without doing anything, while someone like you, burdened with that rundown factory, is just pitifully desperate.
With that declaration, Tom burst into laughter once again. But seeing him like that, I finally understood. He hasn't been told anything about the major decisions of the company. Tom called me pitiful, but from my point of view, he was far more to be pitied. To reach this age and not realize he's been completely dismissed with a "you don't need to know anything" is quite something. Anyway, talking further seemed like a waste of time. I decided to give him a piece of advice. Hey, Tom.
What?
He seemed slightly taken aback by my sudden formal tone. He acts like a king, but he's probably just a coward at heart. Trying desperately to hide it, He wore a mask of nonchalance. I, as a former classmate, felt compelled to offer some words. In life, you can get anything without effort. There are things that I didn't know doesn't excuse. If you keep turning a blind eye to difficult or unpleasant things, you'll eventually face painful consequences. Right after I finished speaking,
"Oi, you! Who do you think you're talking to?
Tom raised a growling shout.
Someone like you, acting all high and mighty. Who do you think you are?"
His face turned red with anger as he glared at me fiercely. It seemed my words were not just unwelcome advice, but had also hit a nerve.
"Really, it's always been your problem, acting all superior, spouting your so-called truths and lecturing people. I've always hated that about you."
And with that, he threw the contents of his beer mug at me. A splash echoed, and the room went silent. I saw my own bangs dripping water in my vision. It seems I was doused quite dramatically. The smell indicated it was beer.
Are you okay?
At the commotion, a hotel staff quickly came over with a towel, distributing drinks in the ballroom. But while I was wiping my face with a towel, Tom, still angry, was yelling at me.
"Damn it, as if you're not rotting away in that crappy factory yourself. The nerve of a nobody like you lecturing me, the future president of a major company, is just unbelievable."
As he said this, Tom stomped on the ground like a child. The hotel staff were earnestly trying to calm him down. I guess it's best for me to leave now to defuse the situation. Feeling like an outsider, I thanked the staff who had shown concern and quietly left the scene. A few days passed. That day, I was at a company for a business meeting. I was led into an impressive reception room. There sat the president of the company and Tom, whom I hadn't seen since the reunion.
"Really?"
Tom was surprised when I showed up. But his father, the president, quickly stood up and greeted me.
"Thank you for coming today."
Tom looked even more astonished, staring at his father beside him. Yes, I was visiting the headquarters of the company run by Tom's father. With my pleasure. I smoothly responded to the president's formal greeting and sat on the sofa. But as we exchanged a few words of small talk, Tom watched us, looking as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Eventually, unable to bear being left out, Tom quietly asked his father beside him,
"Hey, today's meeting is with the president of that famous golf club manufacturer, right?"
The president looked at Tom with a puzzled expression, as if to say, "What about it now?"
"That's right. The person here is the president of the golf club manufacturer. You know him from school, right, Tom? He was your classmate, John Smith. Weren't you guys in the same class?"
Tom's mouth fell open in shock.
"Huh, is he the president?"
That's exactly how it was. Indeed, my family's factory was involved not just in manufacturing industrial goods, but also in making the metal parts for golf clubs. Golf clubs are delicate, with even slight changes in the metal's weight or processing affecting the play. This fine-tuning is challenging even for skilled craftsmen. However, my grandfather's and then my father's factory was renowned for its high-quality craftsmanship, often personally requested by famous golfers. Knowing this, I always wanted to spread our exceptional skills to the world. Initially, I considered following in my father's footsteps as a craftsman. Unfortunately, I've always been clumsy and lacked the talent to succeed my grandfather or father. So, I explored what I could do and eventually proposed launching a new golf club brand. Later, I became the president of a new company, and over the decades, fortunately, we have stabilized at a high performance level, receiving orders from both domestic and international clients, with some items booked up to 3 years in advance. Tom seemed shocked at first to learn I was the president of a well-known company, but his desire to see himself as superior led him to a significant misunderstanding.
Well, John Smith is the president, huh?
He stared at me rudely, and then, with a sly grin, he said,
Oh, I get it. Maybe you want our company to handle your golf clubs.
What?
However, after his son blurted out such a nonsensical statement with apparent pride, it was the president's turn to be taken aback. The president stared at his son for a moment, trying to understand the meaning of the words he had just spoken. Then, with almost a push, he grabbed his son by the collar and made him apologize to me.
I knew you were foolish, but not to this extent. What an impudent way to talk. Who do you think you're speaking to? Apologize right now.
Ow, that hurts.
Tom squirmed as if protesting his father's harshness.
What the heck? Isn't he here asking us for something? Dad, you too. Why are you so humble to such an insignificant person? After all, this is John Smith, right?
At that moment, the president turned deathly pale. Then, more to himself than to his puzzled son, he began to mutter under his breath, as if speaking to himself.
Listen, you may not know this, but this man is going to be the future president of our company.
What?
At those words dropped quietly in the luxurious reception room, Tom blinked rapidly, taken aback.
No way. He's going to be the president of this company.
Tom, who must have believed he would effortlessly inherit the president position, looked utterly baffled, as if hearing a foreign language. Meanwhile, with his son still failing to grasp the situation, the president, filled with resignation, began to speak in a halting manner.
You might not know this, but our company's performance has been deteriorating for years, and we're at a point where recovery is unlikely. However, John saved us from near bankruptcy. His company is acquiring ours.
The president told his son, emphasizing each word as if to make him fully understand.
And they offered us a deal where the management resigns, but all the employees can stay.
That can't be.
Tom seemed to finally comprehend the situation after his father's explanation, momentarily speechless. I watched the scene, shaking my head in disbelief. Truly, he had no idea about the dire situation his father's company was in. Or rather, he probably chose not to know. And his father, seeing no growth in him since high school, had long since given up on him in silence. As proof, the president, leaving his stunned son aside, apologized to me again.
Really, I am deeply sorry for my son's rude behavior. I heard there was a high school reunion recently, and he mentioned meeting John there, so I thought.
Yes, indeed, we did meet then. I recalled, offering a thin, wry smile. We had met, but the circumstances were quite regrettable. Nothing substantial was communicated, and even if we had the chance to talk then, Tom wouldn't have believed anything I said. From my reaction, the president seemed to sense something. The president looked at his son with dismay, anger, and sadness in his eyes.
You are really something.
But at that look, Tom started to rant as if he was outraged.
I'm not at fault. I didn't know, I knew nothing, that the company was in such a state that he would become the president.
The more he ranted, the more the atmosphere in the reception room became tense. For the president, witnessing his son's disgraceful behavior any further must have been agonizing. With that in mind, I slowly began to speak. Robert, there's one more condition I'd like to set for acquiring your company.
Yes, please go ahead.
He responded, nodding obediently. While his son was still causing a scene beside him, I continued, ignoring him deliberately. I said it was okay to retain the employees, but I retract that slightly. I don't need employees who, without trying to know anything, just revel in their own status.
Yes.
The president nodded quietly, and I continued, adding more to what I had said. Also, I cannot accept people who are old enough to not have the decency to pour beer over others' heads. At that moment, Tom, who had been making a fuss, suddenly fell silent. He turned pale, even more so than his father, and trembled in silence. The reception room became quiet, and I concluded matter-of-factly, Robert, please ensure such individuals are properly dealt with before I complete the acquisition. That should be your final duty and responsibility as the president of this company.
Understood.
He said just that, bowing to me with a stern expression. Tom, watching his father's demeanor, remained silent. Now, on to what happened next. Tom, who had complacently relied on his status as the president's son without making any effort or progress, was inevitably ousted from the company. Although he pleaded with his father for help, it seems the president could not protect him without violating the terms I had set for the acquisition. Afterward, Tom was evicted from his luxurious apartment and managed to get by as a part-time worker. I heard he was abandoned by his wife and divorced. On the other hand, I am grappling daily with the challenges of managing the significantly expanded company and safeguarding its employees. Becoming a president means bearing greater responsibilities. I am now faced with the importance of my position and how to leave behind the skills inherited from my grandfather for the future generations. However, I viewed this as a new challenge. As long as one continues to search for paths with calmness and dedication, opportunities will always arise. Armed with the steadfast and earnest spirit passed down from my grandfather and father, I vowed to continue dedicating myself to my work.
Just give me $1 to deposit in our bank.
A classmate working at a major bank said to me with a sneer at our middle school reunion, "Are you really okay with just $1?
Yeah, even a day laborer can afford to deposit $1.
He said, looking down on me as if I were living hand to mouth. He has been looking down on me since we were kids, always mocking me as the poor guy in a haunted house. You really haven't changed at all, but I have. All right then, I'll just keep $1 and close the rest of my account. You said $1 is fine?" I replied with a grin.
Don't try to act cool when you're poor.
He laughed. "Well, laugh all you want. Today will be the last day you get to laugh so much. My name is Michael Harris. One day, I received a notice for my high school reunion. Turning 40 this year, our class reunion was scheduled. Normally, such occasions would be filled with fond memories. However, I wasn't feeling too great about this news. haunted by unpleasant memories from high school. I lost my parents when I was young and was raised by my grandparents. With no one else to take me in after my parents' sudden death, my grandparents took on that role. But their household was far from comfortable, scraping by just the two of them. Life in the old house was tough for the three of us. Having transferred schools in the middle of elementary school, I struggled to fit in. Furthermore, we couldn't afford new clothes or things, and I gradually became the target of mockery for being cool. My grandmother would repurpose her old clothes to make new ones for me. Thinking back now, that's a great thing, but at the time I wanted to wear new clothes like everyone else. Yet, understanding our financial struggles, I couldn't voice my desires. Although I wanted to play with my friends, I couldn't join because I don't have a game console. I was ridiculed and laughed at for being cool at school, leaving me without any fond memories of my student years. After receiving the reunion notice, I debated whether to attend. Ultimately, I decided to go. Despite being overshadowed by bad memories, it wasn't like I had no friends at all. There were a few with whom I really clicked, and I felt the desire to see them. Upon reflection, it seemed silly not to go just because of things that happened long ago. So, I decided to attend the reunion. On the day of the reunion, I arrived at the venue and finally reconnected with old friends. Since graduating high school, I had been so busy with work that I hadn't seen many of my old friends. We caught up on decades worth of stories and had a great time. I felt it was indeed a good decision to come today.
Hey, aren't you Michael?
Suddenly, someone next to me called out my name, ending the pleasant time. Just from his tone, I knew who it was. He was Charles Murphy, the guy who used to tease me for being cool. Turning around, I saw that Charles's entourage, who had ridiculed me since elementary school, was also there. Charles's condescending tone brought back unpleasant memories. I swallowed my emotions and responded maturely. "Hello, Charles. Long time no see."
Hey, don't casually call me by my name, as if we're buddies, you poor thing.
He laughed disdainfully, trying to mock me as if nothing had changed.
You've aged quite a bit, poor guy in a haunted house.
That's nostalgic. His house was hardly fit for living, right?
Charles and his gang mocked me, laughing gleefully. Even after all these years, I was surprised to still be called cool. At the same time, I was appalled that nothing had changed in Charles's character. He had been calling me Pua Guy in a haunted house since I transferred schools in elementary, living in the old family home. This nickname continued through elementary and high school. It's a memory so vivid that I still recall it distinctly, a bitter experience for me. Back then, I couldn't retort to Charles or his gang. I remember secretly thinking that I was going to be a big shot in the future and look back at Charles. I focused on my studies, aiming for a better university than Charles, enduring whatever was said about me. However, my aspirations were dashed, as I ended up working right after high school. As I got older, my grandparents' health declined, and they frequently needed medical care, making finances tighter and my continued education challenging.
Oh, that's right. You couldn't afford university and got a job right after high school, didn't you? How's life with a low level of education?
Charles, remembering that I had to work immediately after high school, mockingly laughed at me. His loud teasing drew the attention of others besides his group. People around us gave wry smiles at Charles's unchanged behavior towards me, yet no one intervened. I was used to this kind of situation. I had friends, but since elementary school, no one had ever stood up to Charles. The reason was that Charles's family was wealthy and influential in town. Even the teachers couldn't reprimand him for his misbehavior at school. Once, a classmate tried to intervene when I was being teased, but he suddenly moved away and transferred schools. Everyone believed Charles must have told his parents, leading to that classmate's family being forced out of town. As a result, including my friends, no classmate dared to correct Charles's behavior towards me.
With just a high school diploma, you must not have a decent job, right? What are you doing for a living now? Begging.
Well, I'm doing various things now.
Various things like what? Day labor. Must be tough living day to day.
When I responded to his question, Charles laughed dismissively. I felt uncomfortable, but knew arguing wouldn't help, so I stayed silent. Let him think what he wants, I thought, as I looked at Charles with resignation. Then Charles started bragging about himself.
Must be hard being lowly educated. Well, I went to a famous university, which paid off. Unlike you, I'm competent, got a job at a bank, and now I'm a manager.
His bank was a major one that everyone knew of, and the people around us couldn't help but express their awe, saying that's incredible.
My life is better than you could ever be.
He said so, and showed everyone pictures of his trips abroad on his phone. Charles boasted about traveling abroad twice a year, during summer and winter, always staying at the best hotels in those places.
Wow, that hotel is really luxurious. I'd love to stay there someday.
It's nothing special for me. I've been going to places like that since I was young.
I wish I could live like this once I become a manager of a major bank.
Charles continued to boast to those who looked at the picture and envied him.
I'm just reaping the rewards I deserve, although it means I have to work hard.
Being a manager must be tough.
Indeed, everyone says they'd be in trouble without me. It's quite demanding.
Charles replied happily to his flattering classmate with a smug face. I was just listening, but felt that continuing this conversation would be a waste of the reunion time. As I was about to move to another spot to chat with friends, Charles addressed me again.
Rich kids grow up to be successful and stay wealthy. You, on the other hand, were destined to live a life of poverty from birth.
His words no longer hurt me. I had grown up. However, this particular comment, which felt like a slight against my family, angered me. As I glared at Charles, he seemed amused by my reaction and intensified his taunts.
If you want to blame someone, blame your deceased parents or your poor grandparents.
I've never resented being born into my family, and I never will.
Ridiculous. A day laborer trying to act cool.
It's not about acting cool. I'm just speaking the truth.
Is that so? Well, being born into a good family is also a talent, they say. Seems like that's just the right fit for you.
I didn't usually talk back to him, but I did. So the people around us were confused to see us getting worse. One of my classmates, who cared enough to stop us from heating up, spoke to Charles.
Hey Charles, would a major bank consider discussing a loan?
A loan? Are you running a company or something?
Yes, it's a small company, but we've been thinking about getting a loan.
I see. Coming from a major bank, I can hardly imagine dealing with small companies, but it's still 100 times better than dealing with a day laborer like him.
But surely a major bank wouldn't bother with a small company, right?
Normally, we wouldn't bother, but since it's you, I'll listen to what you have to say. Be thankful.
Charles said, acting superior even to our classmate. Though I was annoyed by Charles, I appreciated the classmate's concern for me. Such consideration would have been unthinkable in high school, but it seemed everyone had grown up. However, Charles couldn't resist undermining this, turning his attention back to me.
Hey, I'll make an exception and listen to your concerns too. After all, I am a manager at a major bank.
Thanks, but I'm not in trouble at the moment. If I ever need to, I'll consider consulting with you. I replied calmly. Charles burst into laughter, holding his stomach.
Ridiculous. Are you serious? Like you'd ever have anything to discuss with a big bank like ours.
I'm not saying it isn't, but...
First off, do you even have a bank account? Deposit $1 with us. Even a day laborer can afford that.
I looked straight at Charles. Are you really okay with just $1?
Yeah, even a day laborer can manage to deposit $1.
All right, then I'll just keep $1 in the account and cancel the rest.
What? You have an account? I bet there's hardly any money in it. Don't act tough.
Despite his continued mockery, I had one more thing to say. Since the manager himself suggested it, I guess I have no choice. You'll soon find out how much was in there. Charles looked confused at first, then laughed again, thinking I was just bluffing. I left Charles behind and walked away from the scene. The next day, I went to the major bank where Charles worked. Upon telling the receptionist that I wanted to talk with the person in charge, I was led to the reception room at the back.
Mr. Michael Harris, thank you for banking with us. What brings you in today?
I'm here to close my account and transfer my funds to another bank. The banker looked shocked, his eyes widening.
Close your account? You mean to close all accounts under your name?
Keep just $1 in my personal account and cancel all the rest. The peculiar request left the banker speechless. I explained everything about the previous day's reunion, mentioning Charles by name and explaining that I was acting on the manager's advice. The banker seemed to struggle to find words after hearing my story, visibly shaken. Are you okay? Did you understand everything I said?
I am so sorry.
The banker exclaimed, standing up abruptly to apologize. No need to apologize. Please proceed with the account closure.
I'm sorry, just a moment, please.
As he said that, he pulled out his phone and called somewhere. Shortly after, the reception room's door was opened, and the branch manager entered. After receiving a call from the banker, he entered in a panic with a pale face.
Michael, I am truly sorry for the discomfort we've caused. Could you please reconsider the closure of your account?
Both the banker and the branch manager were profusely apologizing. No wonder they apologize in a panic. I had deposited a sum of $100 million in this bank. I was actually a successful real estate investor. The journey to this point was anything but easy. After high school, I juggled jobs at a local gas station and a convenience store, as those were the only places willing to hire a high school graduate like me. I worked tirelessly, day and night, saving every penny to enroll in a correspondence university. That effort eventually led to a job at a local real estate firm. There, I deepened my knowledge of real estate and gradually developed an interest in real estate investment. I delved into real estate and investment studies beyond my job, finding immense joy in learning. I had a great time learning. My confidence grew as I continued my studies, and I started with small investments. Initially modest, I steadily increased and expanded my investments, growing my assets over time. Recently, I've been planning real estate development projects with construction companies and advising on luxury real estate. The house once derided by Charles as a haunted house is now a popular antique cafe, providing a stable income. After my grandma and grandpa passed away, I inherited the property but could not live there due to my work schedule. So, I decided to preserve and remodel the house, leasing it for the cafe. I've accumulated wealth through various means, which is why I told Charles I was doing various things.
Could we have a little more time?
More time.
We will handle the matter with Charles appropriately. Please allow us some time before making your final decision.
I feel a little bad for them for asking me many times. I don't want them in trouble. I regretted that I had been a little childish. I agreed to a 1-week period proposed by the branch manager and the banker, delaying the account closure. They seemed relieved.
Charles has had various issues. We will conduct a thorough investigation and respond accordingly.
The branch manager didn't tell me any more about him, but I contacted someone. I had a good friend who worked at this big bank. When I told him about this, my friend told me about Charles's reputation. Charles was known for his domineering attitude towards junior employees and had multiple customer complaints. Rumors suggested he accepted personal payments under the guise of facilitating loans. Executives were eyeing Charles for potential demotion, and my friend speculated that this incident might trigger severe disciplinary action. A week later, I returned to the bank, meeting with the branch manager, the banker, and now a corporate executive, all of whom apologized profusely.
We are deeply sorry for the discomfort caused to you.
After verifying the facts, Charles acknowledged his words but refused to apologize to you, leading to appropriate disciplinary action.
What kind of action was taken against him? When I asked, they responded sternly.
He has been terminated.
Terminated. Honestly, I didn't expect such severe action.
He just couldn't bring himself to apologize to you due to pride, showing no signs of remorse. We couldn't justify keeping someone like him, who failed to meet his managerial duties and made customers feel this way.
It was a decision made after discussions among the executives.
Refusing to apologize to me was typical of him, it seems.
This wasn't his first act of misconduct. Our investigation revealed many previous issues.
Hearing this, I remembered what my friend had told me. The executive's expressions suggested this was an inevitable decision due to the accumulation of various issues. The executives did not tell me the details, but when I asked my friend about it later, I found out that it was true. I was told that everyone was grateful to me because there were so many people in trouble with Charles's attitude. Grateful for the bank's firm stance against him and the sincere apologies, I decided not to close my account.
We look forward to your continued business with us.
I left the bank, escorted out by the three of them.
Hey, you jerk.
Suddenly, I was berated. Charles was waiting outside. Somehow, he had found out I would be there today.
It's your fault I got fired.
Charles was trembling with rage, glaring at me with unprecedented intensity. He was glaring at me with the sharpest eyes I had ever seen. He probably never thought he'd be brought down by someone he considered so beneath him. I didn't ask for you to be fired. I just wanted to close my account except for $1, as you suggested.
Getting cocky? Oh, you've ruined my life.
It's all your responsibility. Despite everything you said and did to me, I never blamed you.
Shut up. People like you who climb up from poverty always play dirty.
Defending his bruised ego, he lashed out at me. I was astounded by his unrepentant nature. Stop belittling others. It would be better for you to drop your pride and learn some decency. I tried to reason with him as a former classmate. However, Charles didn't listen to my words at all and attacked me furiously. In that moment, bankers and security detained him, preventing any harm to me. Still uncontrolled, Charles was eventually taken away by the police. I later learned from classmates that he was disowned by his family and divorced by his wife after the police incident. It's not surprising, given his termination and subsequent behavior. He then disappeared. While I never wanted revenge, I couldn't sympathize with his downfall. Reflecting on my journey, I felt glad for persevering without blaming others. Soon, I plan to go on an overseas trip with my family, living happily with my wife and children. I sometimes mourn the absence of my parents and grandparents, but am grateful for my upbringing. Despite a better life now, I vow not to become complacent like Charles, remaining thankful for what I have.
My husband graduated from Harvard. He's a real elite. This isn't the kind of wedding for a poor dropout like you. Don't you ever come near my husband again, you might infect him with your stupidity.
At my subordinate's wedding at work, I was insulted by a classmate of the bride, who called me a poor high school grad. As I remained silent and endured, she went on.
Seriously, you reek of poverty. Just go away, shoo.
Susan gestured as if she was shooing away a fly. At that moment, the groom came over with a flushed face.
What are you saying? She is.
At the groom's shocking words, Susan's face turned pale. My name is Karen. The only thing slightly different about me is that I was raised by a single mother. It seems my father divorced my mother for some reason before I was old enough to remember, and I don't recall his face at all. In fact, I have no memories of my father even in my scant childhood recollections. It seems my parents split up when I was very young. I have a brother and a sister. My mother worked multiple jobs and was hardly ever home, so I took care of them instead. My brother and sister are very bright kids, and they never complained about our mom working and not coming home, just accepting it as the way things had to be. Perhaps knowing how we felt, she tried to finish work early to come home for us. But as I reached high school, I understood. My mother was pushing herself too hard. Compared to my friends' mothers, she was thin and it was normal for her to have only one meal a day due to her busy work schedule. When she came home, she would cut her sleep to do the household chores. I wish Mom could rest a bit, but we need the money. I don't want my brother and sister to suffer. As I was lost in thought about what to do, I saw a job posting at school. That's it. I should work. Yes, it was a job posting flyer. Thankfully, my mother had let me go to college. There were more job opportunities for college graduates than for high school graduates, which broadened the range of jobs I could apply for. This was the catalyst for my decision to start working immediately after graduation. I learned money and we'll be happy. That was my determination. However, seeing how hard I was working on job hunting, some of my classmates started mocking me. I had openly talked about being from a single-parent family, not thinking it was something to hide, but that seemed to add fuel to the fire.
Look at the poor girl from a single-parent family.
I was laughed at from behind in the hallway. When I turned around, there was a classmate, Susan.
Nice, the poor single-parent family girl doesn't have to study.
Susan said that, and the others around laughed along with her. I still think I should have talked back then. But I was too scared by the malice directed at me from so many people and couldn't say anything in return. Susan threw cleaning equipment at me. It was so sudden that I couldn't dodge, and a broom hit my leg. Ouch!
Clean this up, will you? We, unlike you, have to study, you know?
She threw a bucket and rag at me too, and I ended up having to clean. Days like this continued. One day, when I came home, my mother was unusually back from work. As soon as she saw me, she looked worried and spoke to me.
Karen, are you okay? Did something happen? Tell me.
I felt like crying at my mother's gentle words. But seeing her tired from work and doing household chores, I couldn't bring myself to cry. No, I'm fine. Just finding job hunting a bit tough.
Karen, don't worry about job hunting. You don't have to work so hard. We have something to fall back on.
No, I want to work. I don't really like studying anyway. My mother didn't press further or ask for reasons. She told me to do what I wanted. I don't think we have savings. She doesn't have to lie. If we really had savings, she wouldn't have to work so much in the first place. A few days later, it happened while we were together in the kitchen at home. My mother, who had been talking with us just moments before, collapsed right in front of me, my brother, and sister. It was due to malnutrition and overwork. She had been so busy at work without any break that her body had been crying out in pain. Pushing through the pain and always enduring it, she had finally reached her limit.
I'm sorry, Karen.
My mother kept apologizing to me in the hospital. No, Mom, it's not your fault. It was my decision.
But dropping out of college.
Yes, I decided to drop out of college to work in place of my mother. We wouldn't have any income while my mother was hospitalized. Thinking about what would happen if she collapsed again, I decided to start working immediately without waiting to graduate. It's okay, I'll find something soon. Although I was determined in front of her. When I got home, I was filled with anxiety. What should I do? Finding a job that hires a high school graduate. I was actually desperate. Without a college degree, the job options narrow drastically, and finding a job that can support a family of 4 is nearly impossible. I need to find any job, even if it means juggling multiple ones. That's what I was thinking at the time. That was when I got a call from school, and my teacher asked me to come in. The next day, I went to school, but I was led not to a classroom or the staff room, but to a meeting room. Excuse me. In the room, there was a man with a calm demeanor. I sat down as prompted, and the explanation began without me knowing anything.
Karen, this is the president of KS Company.
Oh, hello, nice to meet you.
Yes, you seem like a bright young lady. I run KS Company. Here you go.
The president handed me his business card. I remembered the etiquette I read about in books and awkwardly accepted the card. Looking at the card, I realized it was a well-known major company.
I've heard about you.
Oh, thank you.
I would like to invite you to work at my company.
What? I was surprised over and over again. The man in front of me smiled kindly at my astonished expression.
How about it?
Yes, please, I'd be grateful. Incredibly, the president of a major corporation came to the school and offered me a job. I can't let this opportunity slip away. I didn't understand why he wanted to hire me, but as someone desperately searching for a job, I immediately agreed. Thus, I dropped out of college and started working. A month later, I began working at the major company, picked up by the president, Mr. Kent. Everything was new to me, and I struggled to learn the job. It was very unusual for the company to hire someone with only a high school diploma, and behind my back, people whispered that I might be Mr. Kent's mistress. But if I can't make it here, I'll have to juggle part-time jobs, and then I won't be able to support the four of us. Especially since my mother's health hadn't fully recovered, switching to part-time jobs would make it impossible to sustain our livelihood. I endured desperately.
Karen, could you please do this for me?
Yes, right away.
Karen, please take care of this, too.
Yes, I'll start on it immediately.
Karen, can you get 30 copies of this by this afternoon? Organize them and take them to the conference room.
Understood. My seniors and colleagues, not caring about my struggles, kept piling on work and menial tasks. I was constantly battling the behind-the-back talk and my life's uncertainties, working frantically. I willingly took on the jobs that others disliked. After all, I couldn't afford to lose this opportunity. I went to the company every day as if my life depended on it. Years later, this document goes here, that one goes there. All right, finished early today. I sighed with relief as I wrapped up my work. I had become quite adept at organizing documents. After several years, naturally, I got faster at my job.
Karen, is that you?
Oh, Mr. President, good evening. As I was leaving the conference room, the president approached me. He seemed to be attending the next meeting.
Good work. I've heard from the employees that you've been doing well recently.
Really? Thank you so much.
Yes, I'm glad we hired you.
Being praised by the president made me feel recognized and happy. Years later, my efforts were increasingly acknowledged by others. And then, after a few more years, I became a manager at the company. Through continuous effort, I earned trust from those around me and achieved that position. Until around then, I had worked fervently for my family. Eventually, I was working hard to repay the company that had employed me for so long. Then, one day, the president called me. Mr. President, may I come in?
Karen, welcome. I have something to discuss today. Please have a seat.
Yes. Years passed, and I sat in the president's office chair, which had barely changed. What is this about?
Actually, I want you to take charge of a company.
What? I couldn't help but express my astonishment. Can someone like me really?
It's precisely because it's you, Karen.
The president looked at me earnestly.
This company aims to support homes like yours. It's a company that helps single mothers, a company for women.
Listening to him, it turned out the company actively employed single mothers and was gathered by people wanting to empower women.
Because you've experienced hardships firsthand, I want to entrust you with being the president.
I was filled with anxiety. Can I really do this? But the president patiently waited for my response. I'll do it. Please let me do so. And so, I was given the responsibility of running a company. The company I was entrusted with was indeed a female-friendly workplace, as the president had said. Still, I found several areas for improvement and began to implement reforms. I actively hired single mothers as permanent employees and established a daycare and after-school programs within the company. We ensured that a child care professional was available every day. The company enhanced maternity and paternity leave, allowing employees with children to continue their careers with full Social Security and salary benefits. The ideal company I envisioned was gradually taking shape. As I was the one who became the company president, the employees were also motivated.
The president here really understands women.
I agree. It's so comfortable to work here.
I overheard this conversation between employees in the break room. They were talking about me. This boost in employee motivation created a sense of unity within the company. This led to the company's soaring performance. As such, the president of the headquarters had nothing but praise for me. Around that time, a male employee from the headquarters, Norbert, came on an assignment.
Nice to meet you. My name is Norbert. I'll be under your care from today. Please take good care of me.
His greeting was very polite, and he had an elegant demeanor that made a good impression. In a workplace already dominated by women, the arrival of a man of his age sparked gossip.
Hey, he graduated from Harvard.
Really?
Wow, it's my first time seeing someone from Harvard.
And he's single too.
Wow.
Given Norbert's gentle manner and communication skills, he would quickly become popular here. That's what I thought. However, after a few days, I noticed that Norbert looked downcast when he was alone. He would smile when talking to others, but his expression turned somber when he was alone. I wonder what's wrong. Is he okay? But men have their own issues, right? I was worried, but as days passed, I could see Norbert's face growing increasingly troubled. Finally, I approached him. Norbert, do you have a moment?
Yes, sure.
I started the conversation when we were alone.
I'm sorry. Did I make a mistake?
No, it's not that. I've noticed you haven't seemed your usual self lately. Are you okay?
Well.
Norbert's words faltered. He seemed to be struggling with whether or not to speak. I'm sorry. If it's personal, you don't have to talk about it. But as a president and as a person, I'm concerned to see you looking so distressed. Is the workload too much? Or is there a particular task that's troubling you? Please feel free to share anything work-related. I spoke gently to avoid any undue pressure. Trying hard to speak in a way that wouldn't hurt his pride, Norbert seemed to understand my approach, and he nodded slightly and began to speak hesitantly.
Actually, I'm feeling pressured.
Pressured?
Sometimes, when things don't go well at work, I hear he's smart but can't do his job. Is he really a Harvard grad? It's shocking and stressful.
I see.
I've always felt this way since I was young.
Really?
My family, well, my father was a company president, and we never struggled financially. So, a lot of people approached me for money. I've always felt judged by my title or wealth. I thought once I joined the company, people would judge me by my abilities, but it feels the same here too. It's like no one really sees me, and I start to wonder, what am I really?
Though Norbert didn't cry, he sniffled and turned away, as if trying to hide his face from me. He seemed on the verge of tears. Seeing Norbert like this made me feel a twinge of emotion. Everyone has their own set of problems, regardless of what they have. It's okay. Let them say what they want. You are you.
Yes.
I've been through a lot too, you know.
Really?
It was when I joined the company.
You went through a lot too, Miss President.
Yes. You were the president's son, right?
Yes.
I was a poor girl from a single-parent family. Listening to Norbert, I shared a bit of my past, but it flowed out as if it were just yesterday's story. My mother collapsed, and I had to drop out of college. I was constantly rumored about at the company. At first, they kept saying I was useless, questioning how someone who dropped out of college could be here in modern times. There were even rumors I was the president's mistress.
What did you do then?
I worked like mad. Just worked and worked. Because back then, I loved money. Just kidding.
Ha ha.
Let those who want to talk say what they want. They'll see eventually. I tried to cheer up Norbert with jokes and gestures. Whether I truly cheered him up, only Norbert would know. Regardless, I tried to be as entertaining and empathetic as possible.
Talking to you somehow cheers me up.
Well, you're talking to a college dropout who rose from poverty.
Ha ha ha.
The next day after talking with Norbert, Norbert became noticeably brighter, as if he had transformed into a different person. He talked with a beaming smile, quickly devising solutions whenever there were mistakes at work. The communication with his colleagues, which had been a concern, gradually improved as well. I'm glad Norbert is feeling better. Eventually, I could even hear him humming to himself when he was alone. I was happy to have been able to help an employee. From then on, Norbert's work went smoothly. In just half a year at the company, his efforts were recognized, and he was transferred to the headquarters. I was as happy for him as if it were my own accomplishment.
Miss President.
Ah, Norbert, good work.
President, thank you so much. I'll be moving to the headquarters starting tomorrow. I really owe it all to you for getting this far.
Oh, come on. It's your own hard work that did it. No need to be modest. You've earned it, so go to the headquarters with your head held high.
Yes, and, actually.
Norbert handed me an envelope. I immediately understood what it was.
I'm getting married soon. I really want you to come to the wedding, Miss President.
Of course. I'm looking forward to the delicious food.
We'll prepare something fabulous for you.
On the day of the wedding, I headed to the wedding putting on a beautiful dress, something I hadn't done in a long time. Norbert is getting married. I can't wait to see who he's marrying. Excited, I arrived at the venue. Being the president's son, the venue was large, beautifully and lavishly decorated. There were people of all ages, from young to old. There were also guests from the company, and I exchanged greetings with them.
Miss President, thank you for coming.
Norbert, what a beautiful wedding venue. Congratulations again on your marriage.
Thank you. Both my parents are thrilled. We went a bit extravagant. Please enjoy the food. It's delicious.
Thank you. Then Norbert's name was called from afar.
Oh, excuse me for a moment.
The star of the show is busy, I see. Don't worry about me. Go ahead.
Yes, Miss President. I'll see you later.
In marriage, huh? Maybe it's time I found someone too. As I leisurely thought this, searching for my seat, a shrill scream from a woman echoed through the venue.
What? Why are you here?
I turned around to find my ex-classmate, Susan. She wearing a pure white wedding dress. Norbert's partner for marriage turned out to be my ex-classmate, Susan. It was the same Susan as the one who had scorned me as poorly educated. My grip tightened in shock.
You, the poor girl from back then? What? Are you jealous and just came to see? I don't remember sending you an invitation.
I'm here as my work is related to Norbert's company.
What? You work with Norbert? That's the worst.
Susan scrutinized me from head to toe and laughed mockingly.
You still have that poor look on your face. It's such a turn-off. To think a poor person like you would be at my grand wedding.
As I felt uncomfortable, Norbert returned.
Susan, you two know each other.
He was surprised to see Susan and me talking. Susan slapped my back and laughed.
Not that well, just a college classmate. This person is crazy. She's just a high school grad, you know. She dropped out of college. A lowly educated high school grad from a single-parent family and super poor. It's so unbelievable these days. Really hilarious.
Susan clung to Norbert's arm.
Hey, why did you invite someone like her to our wedding? Norbert is a Harvard graduate, an elite. It's not a wedding for some poor high school grad. That's just a mismatch. Hey, Norbert, kick her out. Go on, shoo. Don't ever come near Norbert again.
Susan gestured as if shooing away a fly.
Ridiculous.
Norbert, with a flushed face, shouted loudly.
Norbert.
She's poor. She's a company president. And the person who helped me recover. What are you saying?
Huh?
Susan's eyes widened in shock.
A company president. No way.
I pulled out a business card from my bag. Susan snatched the business card from me as if grabbing it away.
This company. Norbert's.
You've gone too far, no matter what.
It's weird, isn't it? For Norbert, a Harvard grad, to work with a college dropout.
Huh? So you judge people by their education. You chose me for my education too, didn't you?
Wait. That's not it.
Then why did you decide to marry me? What did you like about me?
Norbert confronted Susan. Susan, twirling her finger and looking up at Norbert.
Because I thought being with a Harvard grad would secure my future. And you're the son of the president, and of course, you're handsome and hardworking. Being from Harvard and the president's son, that's part of your charm, right?
Norbert trembled with anger as Susan forcibly held his hand.
I mean, I fell for everything. Didn't I say I really love you?
No way.
Norbert shook off her hand.
Sorry, but I can't be with you, Susan. It's impossible for me to be with you.
Susan gasped in disbelief. It seemed Norbert was deeply hurt by being judged for his background and education. He then sincerely called for everyone's attention.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm terribly sorry for gathering you here. We will cancel the wedding and instead have a meal together.
Norbert. What are you saying? Norbert.
The meals will be brought to each table, so please enjoy the meal there. Don't forget to take your wedding gift back when you leave.
Hey. Why? Wait. Norbert.
He then faced Susan with a serious face.
Let's have a private talk with your parents and mine. I can't spend my life with you.
No. Wait. Why?
As Susan clung to him, Norbert tried to lead her away to talk privately. Before leaving, he looked at me and expressed his apology.
I'm really sorry for the rude words. I'll apologize properly later.
No, it's okay. You should have your talk with her first. Don't worry about me.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Norbert's somber expression was something I had never seen before. I sighed and returned to my seat, but I couldn't swallow the exquisite food before me. A few days later, Norbert formally apologized. And then he told me about what happened afterward. Norbert and Susan officially ended their engagement. Susan was disowned by her parents due to the incident. She tried to visit Norbert's house multiple times, but he refused to see her. And it turned out that the fault lay not only with Susan, but also with her parents. It was revealed during discussions between both families that Susan had been repeatedly told by her parents to choose a man based on education and family background. They disowned her because she was no longer engaged to Norbert, who had a prestigious education. Such a thing.
Yes, it seems her parents often told her that. I did feel some sympathy for her.
So that was the situation. After hearing that from Norbert, I felt troubled. As I watched him leave the president's office and head back to the headquarters, I pulled out a copy of a resume from my desk drawer. It had Susan's name on it. After the turmoil, she had applied to my company. At first, I thought Susan might have applied just to cause trouble, but after hearing Norbert's story, I became curious about her reasons listed on the resume. I just want to hear a little bit more. I decided to go ahead with Susan's interview. On the day of the interview, I met with her nervously. But Susan came into the interview room with a serious look in her eyes. She wore a neatly tailored suit. Her hair was well styled, and the playful gestures that were once characteristic of her were completely absent. Susan, let's begin the interview.
Please do.
The interview progressed with such seriousness that it was hard to imagine she had ever jested before. Susan's expression was stern, showing no sign of malice. She answered the interview questions thoroughly. This concludes the interview. I was about to end Susan's interview after the last question. But then, something made me curious, and I had to ask her. I want to ask you this not as a president, but as a former classmate. Susan made a gulp sound. I could tell that she was nervous. Why this company?
I want to challenge myself.
Challenge?
I've stopped relying on men. This company allows women to rise based on their abilities, right? I want to carve out my own path in life, not because my parents told me to, but because I want to stand on my own.
I noticed the determination in Susan's clenched fists resting on her knees.
I've looked down on many people, including you. But being disowned by my parents made me realize how flawed I was. I wasn't prepared to live on my own.
Susan.
It's only now that I've understood the struggle of being alone. But it's not like me to live submissively at this age. I'll work hard and not let myself be outdone by anyone.
Her seriousness made me more nervous than her. But after reviewing her resume and hearing her during the interview, I made my decision. In a week then, I'll send the details by email.
What?
I'm saying you're hired. It somehow reminded me of myself from a few years ago. I remembered the time when, struggling desperately, the president offered me a job. Knowing Susan's resolve, I decided to bring her into the company. And that decision proved right. Susan demonstrated more effort and dedication than I had expected. She showed more dedication than expected, respecting the single mothers and women with less education she once ridiculed, efficiently managing her work. With her high communication skills and intelligence, she remarkably improved the company's performance within a year. Susan worked so hard that it made me feel a bit envious. And that effort was apparent to the president who had hired me. Then one day, the phone rang. "Hello, this is Karen."
Karen, are you free today or tomorrow?
"Mr. President, good evening. Yes, I am free. Is it about a work meeting?" I tensed up at the president's words over the phone. But the president surprised me with his response.
No. How about we go for a drink? The company you're managing has grown so much. Let me celebrate that a bit.
Yes, of course. I'd be delighted. That evening, I went out for drinks with the president. Having a drink alone with the president, who had been so supportive, was actually a first for me. I sat down, feeling both excited and nervous. The president, considerate as always, chose a relaxed setting for our gathering. As the alcohol loosened me up, I decided to ask him something. "By the way, Mr. President." "Why did you hire me? You came to the school for me, remember? Looking back, it seems so strange." I had been curious. The reason he specifically came to my school to recruit me, even after I had dropped out, had always nagged at me. I was completely unaware of his intentions at the time. When I looked at the president, he hesitated for a moment, remaining silent. But gradually, he began to open up.
The truth is,
"Yes."
I am your real father.
"Yes. Wait, what?" My head, previously fuzzy from alcohol, suddenly cleared. "What, father?" The president, or rather my father, put down his glass of alcohol and began to explain slowly.
Things were not going well at work. I had decided to start my own company, but I couldn't make it work, and there was hardly any income. Yet, I worked desperately.
Because of this, he was rarely able to return home. Unbeknownst to me, my mother had met with my father a few times outside. However, he was too busy and could only spare a few minutes between work commitments, never managing to come home. By the time his business finally started to take off, I had already become a college student.
I offered to help with your tuition, but you were adamant about getting a job. Your mother said if I really wanted to help, I should employ you at my company.
Oh, that's what Mom meant by having something to fall back on. Then, as his company's performance improved, he started financially assisting my mother. My mother insisted she was fine, but considering I had a brother and sister, and the college expenses, he felt obligated to make amends for the past. So, he sent money every month to support her and our family.
What I did is unforgivable. I was always running away, leaving everything to your mother. When I heard she collapsed, the regret was immense.
So, the company I'm working for now is?
It seems my actions naturally led there. A company for single mothers. Perhaps it was my way of making amends to your mother and you all.
That evening, over drinks, I had a lengthy conversation with my father. Although shocked and hardly able to drink, I listened to various stories from the past.
I'm truly sorry.
The man I respected as the president, my father, was sincerely apologizing to me. But I quickly told him not to. Had it been my childhood self, I might have harbored anger towards my father. I might have asked him, "Why did you abandon us?" Or which was more important, work or family? But in the end, he helped our family. He is still protecting my mother's life. I never harbored any resentment towards my father. There were times I wished he had helped us sooner, but realizing that he employed me, cared for me, and watched over me closely made me feel that he had indeed been a father to me. From that day on, I had a father in my life. I gained a father who is also the president. I talked with my mother, and we decided to go on an outing with the whole family. I am incredibly excited about our first family trip. People should not be judged by their titles or labels. Even those with prestigious titles may lack effort or manners, and those who are less fortunate can be competent and successful. Rather than assuming based on appearances or titles, I felt reaffirmed in the importance of looking people in the eye and truly engaging with them.
You're out of place here. Take a moment to reflect on that.
As I arrived at the venue for the new president's inauguration party, I was ousted outside by the department head. Understood. Feeling miserable about myself and giving in, the department head returned to the venue with a sneer. Right after that, the secretary, pale-faced and frantic, came to the president.
"The chairman's son is missing."
And thus, the tumultuous inauguration party of the new president began. My name is Edward Wilson, 39 years old. I'm an employee at the company my father runs. My family consists of my father, mother, and an older brother, making us a family of 4. My brother's name is Mark. Ever since we were kids, Mark has been excellent in academics and sports, a true all-rounder. In contrast, I was just average in everything, with no particular talents, but I was someone who always tried harder than anyone else. Even my strict father acknowledged that about me, at least. When I expressed my desire to work at my father's company after graduating from college, he sternly told me,
"You have no particular talents, but I will allow you to work at my company. Just make sure not to cause any trouble."
Thank you, Dad. I managed to join the company, enduring my father's stern gaze, but there was a reason I specifically chose my father's company.
Remember, keep it a secret from everyone else that we are family. You know why, even without thinking about it.
Yes, of course. Being my father's son was a secret condition for my employment, so I had to keep it hidden.
Edward, this report needs to be redone.
Yes, sir. I'll redo it right away. During my early days, I worked hard to ensure no one suspected anything. I had no special skills, so there was no need to worry about being found out, but I would have had to leave the company if something came up. Occasionally, colleagues would remark, "You have the same last name as the chairman," which made me panic. I denied it vehemently, but perhaps because I lacked any notable traits, no one really suspected anything, and that's how things have been until now. I'm still working as an ordinary employee, but I aspire to climb the ladder someday. Amidst these ordinary days, a new department head was assigned to our department.
He is the new department head, James Cameron.
Nice to meet you all. Looking forward to working together.
As James greeted the gathered employees, I couldn't help but feel uneasy seeing his plump, smirking face. Sure enough, when James met my gaze, his smile deepened even further. It was as if he had spotted his prey. I involuntarily averted my gaze, hoping nothing would happen after James's introduction ended. However, just as I was about to get back to work, the president called out to me.
Edward, can I have a word? I have a meeting later, and since you've been here for years, I'd like you to show James around the company.
Me. I was taken aback by the sudden request, but the president was really begging for it.
I know you're busy with your own work, but please, I'm counting on you.
After being pressed like that, I finally gave in, thinking showing him around wouldn't be too hard. All right.
Can you do it? Then I'll head to the meeting.
The president left briskly, almost as if pushing the responsibility onto me. I had wanted to avoid James as he seemed intimidating, but it wasn't so easy to get away.
Edward, right? Thank you for the tour.
Yes, please follow me. Feeling like James was mocking me after witnessing my exchange with the president, I reluctantly started the tour. Nothing particular happened during the tour, and I was relieved when it ended without issues. Thinking the bad feeling earlier was just my imagination, I decided to speak up to James. If there's anything you don't understand or want to know, please feel free to ask.
Let me see.
It was when I breathed a sigh of relief and greeted him as if nothing had happened. With the same smirking face he had shown during his introduction, James said to me,
I didn't have any questions, but I feel I've learned how easy you are to handle. I'm looking forward to working with you, Edward.
Yeah, sure. Looking forward to working with you too, James. It was an unsettling feeling, as if a chill ran down my spine. I had a bad feeling about this, and it turned out to be spot on.
Edward, I have something here I don't understand. Can you help me out? Could you get me a cup of coffee, ASAP?
Sometimes he would call me over to explain something he didn't understand about the documents, and at other times he would rush me to prepare his coffee. James made a habit of bossing me around. I'm so tired. The frequency was such that people in the office began whispering that I was James's gopher. I could have said no, but he was the boss, and he could overpower me with his authority.
James is new here, so help him out. Don't think you're better just because you've been here longer.
Sometimes he even got other employees to side with him, making me out to be the bad guy. I wanted to say that's not true, but when I remembered he was the new boss, I couldn't find the words to fight back. Life had been ordinary until James joined, but everything changed drastically after his arrival. While it's fine that only a few employees defend James, I find myself unable to focus on the tasks at hand day after day. Then one day, it was announced that a new president's inauguration party would be held. Everyone was assigned a role in preparing the venue, and I was tasked with placing name cards on the tables with James.
This seems like something Edward could handle alone, right?
Right. I can handle it myself, so please leave the place card preparation to me. Knowing I was powerless against James's authority, I reluctantly agreed. I had to prepare all the place cards by the day before and arrange them on the tables at the venue. Despite everything being dumped on me, I was determined to get it done for a certain person. Then, on the day of the new president's inauguration party, having finished my tasks the day before, I headed to the venue. After making sure my suit was in order, I arrived to find the venue lavishly decorated to welcome the new president. It was already filled with employees. The place cards I had set up the day before were properly placed on the tables. I had already checked where my seat was, so as I headed towards my table, James appeared, blocking my way as if on purpose. James, good morning. What's wrong with you? Your seat is over there." Surprised, I thought maybe he didn't know where his seat was, so I attempted to guide him to the table where I had placed his place card. But it seemed I was mistaken, as James looked down on me with disdain.
"I know that. But the place card you prepared. My place card had this scribble on it."
"What?" Shocked, I looked at the place card James was holding up. Indeed, there was a scribble over it, labeling him as plump manager. Why would this be here?
"What do you mean why? You wrote it, didn't you? You were the one who set up the place cards, after all."
"No, that's not true. I didn't write this. Surely someone else must have scribbled on it after I placed it down." I pleaded my innocence, but James was adamant. "You did it."
"Just because I thought you could handle the job alone. I gave it to you, and yet you retaliate like this."
Why would I do such a thing? There's no benefit for me in doing that.
"Enough. Quiet. You just wanted to get me demoted, didn't you? I've seen this kind of behavior at my previous company."
With that, James glared at me suspiciously. Before I knew it, the venue was crowded with employees drawn by our commotion, wondering what was going on.
"Anyway, I will have to discipline you. Leave the venue right now."
James pointed at me, indicating I should leave. But I protested. "Wait, please, James."
"No arguing. I said leave. Now leave."
James forcibly pulled me out, and I ended up outside the venue, falling hard on my bottom. As I did, James looked down and sneered at me.
"Just because you don't like me, you scribble on the place card. You're out of place here. Maybe you should reflect on that."
"No, that's not." I tried to get up quickly, but because I had fallen so hard, I stumbled and ended up on my knees. Feeling miserable about myself, I inadvertently said, "Understood." Seeing me broken, James sneered even more and went back into the venue. I was left stunned by the swift turn of events. Being bossed around by James all the time, and even having the place card task dumped on me, led to this mistreatment. I felt utterly pathetic. As tears blurred my vision,
Edward.
An unexpected person rushed in.
"Great. It worked out,"
James muttered, sitting at his table, laughing after having me ousted. In fact, the scribble on the place card was his own doing. He had deliberately assigned me the task of preparing the place cards to frame me. If he had been involved in preparing them, he couldn't pin the blame on me, so he set it up this way to make it easier to accuse me. The actual scribbling was done in the early morning before the party, when no one else was in the venue.
What a misfortune to think Edward would do such a thing.
Unaware of the truth, the other employees felt sorry for James and were chatting with him until it was time. Just as the president was about to announce the start of the party on stage, holding the microphone, a secretary with a pale face rushed to him.
Please wait. The chairman's son is missing.
What?
Startled by the secretary's words, the president exclaimed into the microphone. Everyone in the venue turned in shock at his voice.
If you're looking for the chairman's son, he's right here, Nick.
The new president.
Then, appearing on the scene were my brother, the new president-to-be, Mark Wilson, and me. The current president and secretary, Nick, looked back and forth between my brother and me.
Where have you been all this time? We've been looking for you.
Just had some personal business to take care of. It seems someone in this company has been bothering my brother.
Your brother is your brother.
The current president's gaze shifted to me standing next to Mark. Yes, I am the brother of the new president. I had been ousted from the venue earlier by James, but had met up with my brother Mark, who heard the commotion.
What are you doing here? I was looking forward to you coming to my inauguration party.
Seeing me on my knees outside the venue, tears in my eyes, my brother had a sense of foreboding and asked me about it. Though we kept our sibling relationship hidden at our father's request, we have always been close. My brother is the kind of person who would lend a hand when he sees me in trouble, a man of kind character. He got recognized by our father, the chairman, for his sincere work and good performance, which led to his inauguration as the new president. Yet, I caused a scene at his inauguration party. Feeling ashamed, I confessed everything to my brother, and he took charge from there.
Mark, you were instructed to keep your brotherhood with Edward a secret by the chairman.
Well, what's done is done.
Mark.
Feeling sorry for the troubled Nick, I watched as my brother took the microphone from the president on stage and said loudly for all to hear,
Whoever has been harassing my brother, Edward Wilson, step forward now.
At my brother's angry words, the whole venue buzzed with tension. Everyone turned to look at Nick and the president, who referred to my brother as the new president, revealing his position before the formal announcement, and they concluded that they should follow his lead. So, when they all looked for the guilty party, James was the only one they were staring at.
Is it you, the one who's been harassing my brother?
Faced with stern looks from my brother and the employees, James started to panic and defend himself.
No, it wasn't me. If anything, I'm the victim here.
The victim?
James nodded emphatically at my brother's skeptical response and pointedly displayed the defaced place card.
Look at this scribble. This is my place card, but it was like this when I arrived at the venue.
And how does that relate to my brother?
There's a big connection. Edward and I were assigned to prepare the place cards, but I had an errand, so I asked him to take care of it.
James narrated the events leading up to the scribbling to my brother. There were some discrepancies in his story, but I stayed silent and listened until the end.
After I asked him, this happened. It's obvious that Edward is the culprit.
You really think so? This scribble does say plump manager, but my brother isn't the type to write such messy handwriting.
What?
Indeed, on closer inspection, the handwriting was rather sloppy. Perhaps because I had been so desperate to prove my innocence, I hadn't noticed that detail.
Now that you mention it, Edward's handwriting was neater than what's on this place card.
After the handwriting was mentioned, the employees began to speak up one after another, saying it didn't look like my handwriting, causing James to panic even more.
Such vague testimony doesn't prove that Edward didn't do it.
It doesn't prove he did it either. What are you saying?
Mark. As James and my brother's gazes clashed, everyone was wondering what would happen next when Nick, who had been missing, returned to the stage and whispered something to my brother.
So, it was a setup after all.
What? My brother muttered, then gave some instructions to Nick.
James, please watch the video that will be shown on the screen we're lowering onto the stage.
Video? What?
While James looked shocked, a large screen slowly descended at the back of the stage, showing footage of me diligently placing name cards on the tables. After I had placed all of them, I left the venue. The footage then fast-forwarded, and the date changed to early the next morning, when someone entered the empty venue. On closer inspection, it appeared to be James. His distinctive plump figure was confirmed, and he was sneaking around, looking around suspiciously.
Stop it, please. Stop the video.
James's attitude changed drastically, turning pale and trying to force his way onto the stage to stop the video. However, my brother was unyielding and didn't stop the video.
Look, he's writing something on his place card.
A female employee exclaimed as she watched the video. Next, the footage showed James writing on his own place card.
Nick, stop the video here and zoom in, please.
Understood.
Nick, who was controlling the video on a computer, followed my brother's instruction to pause and zoom in on James's place card. There it was, Plump Manager written above James's name.
This is irrefutable evidence, isn't it, James?
My brother asked, comparing it with the earlier footage where it hadn't been written yet. Realizing he could no longer escape, James fell to his knees.
I did it. There was no malice. I just wanted to play a little prank on Edward.
A little prank. At that word, I, who had been silent, suddenly felt a surge of anger. A little prank. Is that how you justify the harassment I've been enduring? That's no small matter.
Yikes.
At the sound of my outburst, James recoiled in fear. Perhaps because I seldom got angry, even my brother and the other employees were surprised by my reaction. I joined this company, going against our strict father, out of admiration for my brother, and you not only hindered that but resorted to such petty schemes to demean me, and you call yourself a manager.
Yeah, quite right.
After finishing what I had to say, my brother laughed in agreement, but then he turned his gaze back to James, his eyes stern once again.
We will report the matter to our father and announce the decision later, so be prepared. However, don't expect to stay in this company.
But I just changed jobs recently.
It's terrifying that you could act this way so soon after joining. That's the real issue here.
James, having been rebuked by my brother, hung his head in shame. Thus, James's misdeeds came to an end.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. I am Mark, the new president. I am committed to contributing to the company's growth, and I look forward to your continued support and cooperation. As always.
After the commotion, my brother resumed the event with his inaugural speech as the new president. His clear speech was met with a round of applause, and a welcoming atmosphere filled the room. I was watching from my seat, but after the speech, I was bombarded with questions from the female staff during the meal.
Is it true that you are the new president's brother?
Hey, what's the president's favorite thing?
My brother, who has always been popular with women, seemed to be as charismatic as ever, as the female employees bombarded me with questions upon finding out we were siblings. I thought they should ask him directly and escaped to the restroom, but then I noticed something odd. Why does it feel like everyone is avoiding me? The men seemed to deliberately avoid me, apparently having labeled me as someone scary after I had scolded James. After a while of being kept at a distance, things slowly returned to normal as I continued with my work, which was a relief. As for James, my brother and our father, the chairman, had a discussion about him.
Nick, I'm curious about the company James worked for before. Can you look into it?
Understood.
My brother had Nick investigate James to uncover the reasons behind the recent events, and it was reported that James had resigned from his previous company after similar incidents.
Indeed, I conducted his interview and approved him. He seemed to have managerial experience at his previous company, so I thought he would be a valuable asset.
It appears that decision backfired. We should have looked into his past employment more thoroughly.
Oh no!
Without proper vetting, the former president, who had hired James, was also held accountable, resulting in both being demoted. Despite being slated to assist the chairman, the former president's reputation took a hit. Stripped of their current positions, they started anew as rank-and-file employees.
James, work harder and stop complaining. I'm counting on you for these documents.
Yes, right away.
James spent his days being pushed hard by his boss, a sight I could easily imagine.
So, it has finally come to light.
I'm sorry, Dad. It's all my fault. One day, after the incident with James, my brother and I were summoned by our father, the chairman, to his office, where Nick was also present. My father seemed concerned that people might find out about our familial relationship between him and me, just as he was worried about the fact that Mark and I were brothers becoming known to everyone at the company. The reason was to prevent any negative perception that might affect my brother, the heir apparent. I'm not as exceptional as my brother, so just the knowledge of our relation could tarnish the company's image. I knew this when I joined the company and had accepted my father's reasoning. If my presence threatened my brother's position, I was prepared to leave the company gracefully. I came prepared to resign after causing such a disturbance, but my father's response was unexpectedly reassuring.
I heard everything from Nick. It felt like hearing about the bond between you brothers. For Edward, who caused the trouble, writing a reflective essay will suffice as punishment.
What, so that means?
If you admire your brother, set a goal for yourself. Start by rising above the rank of a regular employee and aim for the manager position.
Our strict father told me that my duty was to continue working as an employee. But he also gave me a goal to motivate me. Thank you, Chairman Wilson. Feeling a familial bond from my father's words, I was overjoyed. When I inadvertently made eye contact with Nick, he stealthily gave us brothers a thumbs up behind our father's back. After expressing my gratitude deeply to my father and Nick, my brother and I shared a laugh. 5 years have passed since then, and after tirelessly following in my brother's footsteps, I was finally promoted to manager.
Keep up the good work, Edward, the manager.
My brother, who continues as president, supports and encourages me within the company. Ever since our brotherhood became public, we have interacted openly, without concern for what others think. Partly because of my brother's support, I was able to achieve this promotion. To get even closer to my brother's level, I continue to strive forward every day.
High school grads are a disgrace to the company. Cut them off.
Bob, the new CEO, said, laughing and waving his hands as if shooing away a bug. Even though it was his inauguration party, he had removed my seat and told me to sit on a cardboard box. He has always been presumptuous and harassed me. I've had enough of his nonsense. I'm leaving now, I announced and left the venue. About an hour later, I received a call from Bob.
The leading shareholder is looking for you. Just come back immediately.
Imagining someone's angry face at those words, I couldn't help but smile. My name is Mike. I'm just a regular office worker in the general affairs department of a major company. I'm quite timid and often retreat when spoken to harshly.
Mike, you're not in the wrong. You should stand up for yourself more,
said my old friend from school days, Tom. He has always been on my side, always encouraging me to be confident.
I've heard good things about your work from that department.
I'm known in my department for being meticulous in my work. My colleagues are all serious and kind people, and I have friends here, so I'm truly glad I joined this company. Sometimes we go out for drinks, and I have a good rapport with them.
Hey, are you free next weekend? I found the book you wanted to read. How about reading it at my place?
Really? Oh, but I have plans with my grandma this weekend. She's busy, but she said she can make some time then.
Then let's plan for another time. Or you could come over during the week and stay over.
I felt grateful for his cheerful offer. I grew up in a relatively wealthy family. However, my parents were practical people and raised me strictly to prevent me from becoming spoiled. But they were also kind and supported whatever I wanted to do wholeheartedly.
You're a good, serious kid, so you tackle everything with earnestness.
That's why we feel like supporting you,
my parents said, patting my head. They died in an accident when I was in middle school. Since then, I was raised by my maternal grandma.
Mike, I'll be coming home late from work for a while. Will you be okay by yourself?
I'm in middle school, so I'll be fine. My grandma was a busy person and always worried about not being able to attend to me much. Still, she raised me with the same kindness and strictness as my parents. I still respect her and consider her an important part of my family.
How are things going with your girlfriend?
Things are going well. How about you?
I'm doing well, too. We're planning to have dinner together today.
I've been in a relationship for 3 years with a woman named Olivia. She has recently achieved her dream of becoming a lawyer. I met Olivia in a book club for our shared hobby.
The book you're reading. I've been interested in it too.
Yo, it's pretty interesting. A plot is unpredictable, and I always wonder what's going to happen next. I'm about to finish it. Do you want to borrow it?
Really? That'd be great. Let's have a discussion after I read it.
Our shared interest in books led to our dating.
I've always dreamed of becoming a lawyer, like the attorney who helped my mom back in the day.
Her dream was to become a lawyer. So, I supported her from behind the scenes as she focused on the bar exam. While we lived together, I did household chores, provided snacks, and we took breaks together. When she passed, we celebrated together. After completing her legal training and getting her license, Olivia finally landed a job at a law firm.
Let's get married once work settles down.
Of course. We made such promises, and I was living happily. One day, a business partner from France was scheduled to visit.
So, I'd like you to handle the translation.
Yes, I'd be happy to. Being fluent in French, I was appointed as the interpreter. I was to accompany the executive, Bob, as his interpreter. Therefore, I went to greet Bob. I look forward to working with you today.
Mike. Right. Which university did you graduate from?
I had heard that Bob was particular about academic backgrounds. There was no need to hide it, so I was going to answer honestly. I actually graduated high school in the States.
High school. We have someone with just a high school diploma in our company.
My attempt to explain was cut off by Bob's surprised reaction. No, what I meant by high school was,
isn't there someone with a better educational background to interpret for me? They want to assign a high school grad to me.
Despite trying to explain, Bob completely misunderstood and wouldn't listen to me. That's when my timidity worked against me. Intimidated by Bob's assertiveness, I found myself becoming increasingly silent. Bob, not paying any attention to me, was yelling at those around him. However, it was decided that there was no one more suitable than me, and after some persuasion from others, he reluctantly agreed to have me as the interpreter.
Just make sure you don't do anything embarrassing.
Yes, sir. Then, the client from France arrived, and Bob led the meeting. I must say, I did a perfect translation job. The French client liked me and engaged with me with a smile. I served with all my heart, trying to bring the negotiation to a contract. So, it seems we have no choice but to pass this time. However, we couldn't come to an agreement on the terms, and the deal was postponed. It was an unavoidable situation. No matter who negotiated or translated, it wouldn't have worked.
The failure of the contract is because of this low-educated interpreter.
But Bob blamed it on me being the low-educated interpreter. No matter how much the other employees explained that the numbers just didn't add up, Bob kept scolding me.
If this low-educated idiot had interpreted better, we could have had a contract. This is why high school grads are useless.
Bob's anger was intense, and no one could argue further. After a lot of yelling, Bob left with heavy footsteps.
I heard about it, Mike. You got chewed out by Bob.
Yay, well, you know.
Before complaining about others, he should be thankful you interpreted for him.
And my colleagues immediately supported me. While I appreciated it, I still felt unsettled. I knew he cared about education, but to misunderstand and go on a tirade like that, it's unsettling to have such a person as an executive. It feels like he will pick on me again. I hope this doesn't turn into a big hassle. Thinking about the future, I sighed deeply. And my bad feeling turned out to be right. From then on, Bob became harsher towards me for any reason.
Originally, he was from the General Affairs Department, so that probably makes him dislike you even more.
Being from General Affairs himself, he probably couldn't stand that someone with just a high school diploma like me was in his domain. That was the speculation of Alex, the head of the General Affairs Department. Bob started summoning me for menial tasks and tried to give me work unrelated to general affairs.
Why do we have a high school educated incompetent in our company? Especially in general affairs of all places. We don't need people like that.
And he kept pressuring, indicating there was no place for a high school educated incompetent. Alex couldn't openly defy Bob and couldn't protect me in public.
Is that from Bob?
Yes.
Then, I'll assign that work to someone else. Focus on your tasks here, Mike.
However, Alex took care to distribute my workload in general affairs to others while I was burdened with Bob's tasks, to prevent me from being overworked. Thank you always.
No, don't mention it. I'm sorry, this is all I can do.
No, it's because of Bob, so it can't be helped. I was genuinely grateful for his consideration. But the harassment from Bob only escalated. Sometimes I was unjustly reprimanded, and I received pitying looks from other employees.
Mike, are you okay?
Yo, I'm fine. Alex, the general affairs manager, and everyone in the department are helping me.
I'll help as much as I can too.
I appreciate it, but aren't you busy with sales?
Well, yo.
I thanked Tom, who always looked concerned.
I'll talk to my girlfriend about it too, so you should talk to yours.
Yo, thanks. I wondered why he mentioned his girlfriend, but I nodded anyway. Talking to Olivia, my lawyer girlfriend, might indeed be a good idea. However, I thought she was too busy with her new career, but Olivia noticed something was up.
Mike, did something happen at work?
Why?
You seem lost in thought.
So, I ended up venting about work to her. Olivia listened to me seriously.
For just in case, record that guy Bob's verbal abuse.
But
it's for your own defense. In case of emergency, those recordings will protect you.
Convinced by her, I started carrying a voice recorder in my pocket. I continued to receive harassment and verbal abuse from Bob.
How long does this high school incompetent plan to shamelessly stay in this company?
I'm sorry. However, thinking about the voice recorder in my pocket made me feel less pained than before. Knowing I was collecting evidence of his verbal abuse made things easier for me.
Mike, can we talk for a sec?
Sure, but Tom, who is she?
I'm Emma dating Tom.
After Bob left, Tom and his girlfriend approached me. Emma was older than us and seemed to work in administration.
I wanted to ask about Bob.
About Bob?
More precisely, about what he did to you.
We moved to a meeting room to talk. I was confused the whole time.
I understand your confusion, but please tell us.
Tom urged, so I shared the verbal abuse and harassment I faced with her.
You went through all that.
He frowned upon hearing my story. Being in a different apartment, he probably didn't know the details of the harassment. He looked a mix of worried and angry. He really is a caring and good friend.
Thank you for sharing all this with us.
She, lost in thought, greeted me politely. She's very polite. I thought to myself as I responded to her thanks. You're welcome. Emma, who are you exactly? You don't seem like just an administrative worker. She looked momentarily puzzled, but then smiled kindly.
It's a secret for now. I'll tell you everything once it's all settled.
I decided to wait and learn later if she would eventually tell me. It happened shortly after. Bob was appointed the new CEO, and I felt a sense of relief, thinking I would finally be free from his harassment. I figured he'd be too busy as CEO to bother with a regular employee like me, just a bit more patience required. I reassured myself with that thought. But my hopes were swiftly dashed. On the day of the new CEO's inauguration ceremony, Bob, the former executive, now CEO, greeted everyone in front of all the employees. I was supposed to attend the inauguration party for a certain reason. This is it, right? When I went to the seat indicated by the reception, my chair was missing. I confused and checked several times, but it was undoubtedly my seat.
Removed your seat.
Bob arrived and said that. I looked at Bob, who was smirking unpleasantly, in bewilderment. What do you mean?
I was surprised to see your name on the seating chart. How did a high school rat like you sneak into my party?
I never expected to be called a rat at a celebratory event. I was officially invited.
Bend your seat, let's see. How about this one?
Bob walked away as if he had an idea. Then came back with a cardboard box from behind a partition and placed it where my seat should be.
A cardboard chair is good enough for the bottom rung.
Bob laughed heartily. That was the last straw for me. Being a CEO doesn't give him the right to do whatever he wants. Do you think this is acceptable?
If you don't like it, leave the company. Now that I'm CEO, there's no place here for high school grads.
Bob shouted back at me as if my retort had hit a nerve. Usually, I would have remained silent, but this time I was too angry and glared back. He looked surprised for a moment, but then he sneered.
High school grads are the company's shame. Cut them off.
Bob gestured dismissively with his hands as if shooing away a bug. Something snapped inside me. I had thought that someday he would see my true value, even with the harassment, but now I didn't care anymore. I'm leaving then. Resigned, I announced and left the venue. Bob, watching me go, laughed and said,
Don't ever show your face around me again.
I left the venue and went into a random shop, where I sat alone, deep in thought. What should I do now? I don't want to work under such a CEO. At that moment, my phone rang. Looking at the time, it had been about an hour since I left the venue. The caller was Bob. Reluctantly, I answered the phone.
Come back here right now.
What are you talking about? I've cut ties with you, so I'm quitting the company. I won't return. I responded calmly to his frantic voice.
The lead shareholder is looking for you. Just come back right now.
He cut the call abruptly, ignoring my words. Such a selfish person. The leading shareholder. She's arrived. The thought of a certain person crossed my mind, and I couldn't help but laugh. imagining her probably fuming with anger. And with that person in mind, I decided to return to the venue.
What on earth is going on here?
Entering the venue, I saw a pale Bob and an elderly woman with white hair standing before him.
What have you done to Mike?
A woman with white hair was shouting furiously at Bob. This woman is my grandma, Harper, and the leading shareholder of our company. I had been invited to the party as my grandma's companion and had arrived early to check the venue. There, for some reason, Emma was standing next to my grandma. Our eyes met, and she gave me a warm smile.
Oh, Mike.
This caught Bob's attention, and he rushed over in a fluster. My grandma also noticed me, giving me a warm look before turning a stern gaze back to Bob.
I didn't know you were associated with the leading shareholder. Please, make amends with Harper.
Bob pleaded with me. Pathetic. I looked towards my approaching grandma.
Mike, what kind of treatment have you been receiving at the company?
I grimaced with a wry smile as my grandma asked angrily. She's always so imposing when angry.
Your seat had a cardboard box on it. Unbelievable.
Easy now. Let's calm down first. Listen to this. I tried to soothe my grandma while pulling out the voice recorder from my pocket. I then shared the various verbal abuses I had endured, played back from the recorder.
How long does this high school dropout plan to shamelessly stay at this company?
The abusive words echoed in the venue, silencing the room.
Harper, please consider this as well.
Then, Emma showed my grandma something on her smartphone screen. It displayed me being berated and burdened with work. When was this filmed? As I pondered quietly, Bob turned deathly pale. Meanwhile, my grandma's anger steadily rose, and reactions varied around the room.
We've been collecting testimonies about his treatment from various departments. We can present that information if needed.
Emma smiled sweetly again. Though it was the same smile as before, there was something about it that seemed to send a chill down my spine.
No, you misunderstand. I thought the job might be too challenging for a high school graduate in this company.
What are you talking about? Mike graduated from a university in France, and he skipped grades too.
My grandma countered Bob's attempt to explain. His eyes widened in shock.
France. Skipped grades. But he said he was a high school graduate.
Bob was completely flustered and turned to me for confirmation. Even if I graduated from a university in France with advanced placement, in America, they don't recognize it the same way. So, my American education level is high school, but in France, I'm a college graduate. I explained to Bob.
That's impossible.
While he was muttering, I decided to add one more thing. I also entered both my American and French educational backgrounds on my resume when I took the entrance exam for this company. I'm not sure how it was evaluated, but since I passed the exam, I believe the company has accepted my qualifications. After I added this, Bob fell silent.
It's astounding how much undercover harassment you can do to one employee.
My grandma remarked, looking at the cardboard chair placed at my seat. Her anger seemed to have subsided, replaced by a look of disbelief.
That's because I didn't know Mike was your grandson.
Even at this point, Bob was still trying to make excuses. I didn't want to be thought of as someone who got a job because of my grandma's influence. That's why I took the entrance exam quietly and passed on my own. After joining the company, I confided to the then president alone that I was the major shareholder's grandson. I had asked him to keep it quiet from everyone else. I'm not good at standing out or being in the spotlight. That was my wish. The then president respected my wishes and had kept it to himself until now.
If you had known he was my grandson, you wouldn't have acted this way. What a piece of work.
My grandma said sarcastically. At her words, he had nothing to say and just hung his head. After that, the party never really shifted to a celebratory mood for the new CEO and simply continued as a meal event. Bob left the venue alone. Accompanying my grandma, I went around finishing up greetings.
Good work, Mike.
Oh, Emma. After completing the greetings, Emmy approached me. I thank her for gathering the evidence earlier.
It's okay, Tom asked me to do it.
So, Emma, you are.
Actually, I'm related to the former president. I met Harper through my uncle, and now we're friends.
Emma smiled mischievously. It seems she is the niece of the former president. Our company doesn't have a hereditary system. It chooses the next president based on merit. She had no intention of taking over and agreed with that principle. She had accepted Bob becoming the president as the former president stepped down. However, she heard rumors that Bob was harassing me.
At that time, Tom consulted with me about you, Mike.
She had revealed her identity only to Tom. So, he must have asked her if anything could be done about it.
That's why I started looking into things.
Is that so? Tom did?
The more I looked into it, the less I wanted him to inherit the company my uncle cared so much about.
Seeing her smile, I understood why Tom was smitten with her.
I should be going now.
Shall I walk you out?
No, it's fine. Tom is picking me up.
Are you two going on a date? She blushed and nodded. I want to see Olivia. I must fulfill my role as my grandma's companion well. With that in mind, I renewed my resolve as I watched Emma leave, hoping to return to her side as soon as possible. Eventually, Bob was removed from his position as CEO by a shareholders' resolution and stepped down. However, he was appointed as the president of a subsidiary, acknowledging that he had some capabilities. Bob seems to have had a change of heart. He no longer ridicules employees for their education and is managing the company appropriately.
Mike, I think you should claim damages for this.
I don't really care anymore.
But it's about settling the score. You suffered because of Bob. It's important for both you and him to settle this.
Following Olivia's suggestion, I decided to claim damages from Bob. He complied willingly and paid the compensation. I was honestly surprised. I thought he would resist.
Well, if it had been the old me, I definitely would have refused to pay.
Bob had completely changed, showing a more composed demeanor. Curious, I couldn't help but ask why.
In my family, academic achievements were everything. Those with lower education were considered the bottom, and only high-educated individuals had value.
His obsession with academic credentials stemmed from his family's long-standing belief in educational elitism. He mentioned having a younger brother who lives freely, following the motto, "Live doing what you love." Consequently, Bob's parents disregarded this brother.
thanks to following the family's advice and graduating from a prestigious university. I was able to advance my career. Meanwhile, my brother continues to live freely.
Bob's family praised him, but it was solely because he achieved high academic status, as they demanded, not recognizing it as his own talent.
I knew this, but I always denied it. That denial created a fissure in me, making me constantly irritable and aggressive towards others.
However, following this incident, Bob was disowned by his family. In contrast, his brother, who successfully started his own company, was now being praised.
Seeing all this made me feel foolish.
Bob, on the brink of self-destruction, was admonished by his brother, who had refused to get involved with the family, and his wife, who continued to support him.
That's when I fully woke up. From now on, I want to start over, not for my family, but for myself, the company, and my loved ones.
I felt a newfound respect for Bob. I'm sure he'll be all right from now on.
As for the damages, I was wondering how I could make it up to you. So, your claim actually helped me.
Olivia's words impressed me internally. I continued working as usual afterward. Due to the incident with my grandma and Bob, it became known at the company that I was the major shareholder's grandson. But I am separate from my grandma. Please treat me as usual, without any special treatment. I requested my colleagues not to give me any preferential treatment. They understood my wish and interacted with me as they always had. I felt grateful to my colleagues and became even more dedicated to my work. Tom consulting Emma really helped gather a lot of evidence.
That's good to hear.
Grateful to Tom for his help, I decided to treat him to a meal as a thank you. Tom has always treated me the same, regardless of my family's wealth, which I truly appreciate.
You say that, but I'm also grateful to you.
Really? Tom and I became close in high school after he reached out to me. It all started when he approached me.
When I was about to give up in club activities, you supported me, and that made me want to try a little harder.
At that time, Tom was about to quit the club because he couldn't keep up. That's when I remembered how my parents supported me and encouraged him. Just try a little longer. As a result, he outperformed everyone else and overcame his inferiority complex.
Everyone else had given up, but you were the only one who supported me. That's why I decided to always be there for you too.
Tom said with a laugh. I was moved by his words and had to fight back tears. Quickly changing the subject to small talk to hide my emotions. Tom and I ending up at the same company was a complete coincidence. He's head over heels for Emma, and he fell even more for her after seeing her dignified presence at the party. We shared various stories and had a great time.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Olivia. Olivia was waiting at home with a smile.
You look really happy.
Do I? Maybe because I had fun.
That's good. You seem to be pondering a lot recently.
Thanks. When I thanked Olivia, she giggled and asked,
About what?
Looking at her, I felt a strong desire to protect her smile. Later, Olivia's work finally settled down. So, will you marry me?
Yes, I'd love to.
And so we decided to get married. Considering my preference to avoid the limelight, Olivia suggested a small ceremony with only family and close friends. Thank you, but are you sure it's okay?
It's fine. I'm not interested in a lavish wedding. It has to be something we both truly enjoy.
I grew to love her even more when she said that with a smile. I decided to invite my grandma, Tom, and Emma. Since Olivia only invited her family, it was a small wedding. However, it turned out to be a very warm ceremony.
Mike and Olivia, I wish you both happiness.
Actually, we're also planning to get married within the year.
That's great. They blessed us. Then I promised to sincerely celebrate their moment. Meanwhile, my grandma, seeing me in my finest, greeted Olivia with tears of joy.
Please take care of him.
Yes, I will make sure we're happy together.
I'm counting on you. Both of you have worked hard and faced many challenges, right? So I want you two to be very happy.
For my grandma, who had always watched over me, I resolved to build a happy family with Olivia. Eventually, I will inherit my grandma's fortune. But with Olivia being a lawyer, I feel very reassured. Well, that's a concern for the distant future. First, we need to have a child for my grandma to hold. For Olivia and our future family, I need to strengthen my mental resilience.
I'm rooting for you, Mike.
For my precious family, I will strive harder from now on, while ensuring I never look down on or ridicule anyone.